tease results with rich potting mix that uses ingredients fresh from the forest and plant food that adds vital nutrition. So you'll have 3 times the blooms. They bask in their success. Miracle Grow, 3 times the beauty, 1 powerful guarantee.
I was right out of college and I was starting job interviews, and I already noticed that my teeth were starting to shift. When I heard of Smile Direct, I was so excited.
Let Smile Direct Club give you a smile you'll love for 60% less than braces by sending invisible aligners direct to you. Plus, we straighten most smiles in an average of 6 months.
So convenient. You don't have to go to an orthodontist every month. You can go into a smile shop. They also have a kit that they can ship directly to your house. There's really no excuse to not try it.
Get started for 60% less at SmileDirectClub.com.
Did you know that every time you use the internet, you put yourself at risk? Not only can your internet service provider see every website you visit, hackers can see your transaction details. Strangers can monitor your children's activity. NordVPN uses military-grade security protocols that protect your information so no one can see what you do online. Protect up to 6 devices for just $4 per month. Don't risk being hacked. Visit nordvpn.com/TV today.
Tonight, courage, hope, and a dream. 50 years later, join Lester Holt live from Memphis to honor Martin Luther King Jr. How his legacy continues to inspire the nation today. Tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Apple CEO Tim Cook lets loose in the interview everyone's talking about.
If you were Mark Zuckerberg, what would you do right now?
I wouldn't be in this situation.
Okay.
A special town hall, Revolution, Friday at 8 on MSNBC.
Well, in case you missed it, the MTB Daily team just got a little bit bigger, about 9 pounds bigger, actually. And, of course, even more adorable, if that's possible. So I want you to meet Jonah J. Bergman. He is the newborn son of one of our producers, Jesse Bergman. Jonah was born Monday afternoon. We're told that mom, Shayna, is doing great and that his big sister, Sadie, is excited to have a little brother. It's good to have that order. Big sister, little brother. Trust me there, Bergman family. Anyway, congratulations to Jesse, the entire Bergman family. We're excited. And Jonah, let us know when you're ready to pitch in around here when your dad's got other work to do. That's all we have for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more MTB Daily. The Beat with Ari Melber starts right now. Good evening, Ari.
Good evening. Thank you, Chuck. The legal and political world processing a rarity right now in the Mueller probe, reporting on how it might end. The Washington Post leaning on sources close to the White House to report that Bob Mueller views Trump as a subject, not currently the target of his criminal probe. And this could all end with Mueller releasing more than one report on Trump by topic, addressing evidence about obstruction and collusion. Trump reportedly relieved that he is not a target right now and thus might be more open to an interview with the special counsel. Now let's just pause and take that in. The President of the United States thinks it's positive that in his 2nd year on the job, he's considered the subject of an open criminal probe, meaning he's intimately tied to potential crimes because it's not as bad as if he were the person about to be indicted. Now, by contrast, in the rest of the world, if your lawyer calls and says you're the subject of a criminal probe, it's very bad news. And also in other presidential administrations, when there were criminal probes, they never began this early. Bill Clinton, you can see here, in office over 1,800 days. Nixon, 1,500 days before theirs began. Trump, it was just a few months in. So that's the context on just how odd it is that Trump has this relief about this. Then let's move to the legal hole in this premise that being a subject implies Trump won't later become a target. Here's former prosecutor and Republican politician, I should say, on that point.
You generally don't tell people that you're not under investigation because you don't know what the next witness is going to say.
So if you were his attorney, you would not say, you wouldn't have a sigh of relief?
Heavens no. I will have a sigh of relief when the investigation is over, and even then, maybe not.
Heavens no. Now, when this investigation is over, it'll be all eyes on Rod. As we reported on The Beat when we first were interviewing the man who literally wrote the rules that Rod Rosenstein applies to govern Mueller, when Mueller's done, he will hand his evidence and his report to Rod Rosenstein, who decides whether there's any report or information that goes public or to Congress. Now, those are big questions. Would the Mueller report stay secret? Would it go down the hill to the Congress? And what about any extra evidence? Does that also go in some kind of congressional vault? These are all questions that, of course, were addressed the last time a president was in a criminal probe in the second term of the Clinton administration.
Tonight, the future of the Bill Clinton presidency is in a locked vault in a congressional office building. The voluminous report of independent counsel Ken Starr.
On Capitol Hill, the independent counsel's report arrived this afternoon. 36 boxes, 2 copies of each piece of evidence that could ultimately lead to impeachment hearings against the president.
Those boxes, that evidence, it all led to a House impeachment and then a Senate acquittal. It's worth remembering that most experts and participants at the time could not predict at all where things were headed. Clinton's team first fought against him testifying, as Trump aides are doing today. But it was that video testimony that ultimately helped Clinton. Many saw it making him sympathetic and leaving the prosecutors looking petty, even tawdry. Today, though, many Democrats pushing hard on a road to impeachment. Of course, they lived through a push by House Republicans that ultimately backfired legally and politically. The cases are very different, of course. The Clinton impeachment boiled down to, well, lies about sex, and there were no other convictions in that case. This Trump probe already includes foreign crimes to impact an election and several guilty pleas. Where the case heads, though, and what Rod does, that's an unpredictable path. Also unpredictable, but new tonight, I want to credit our competitors, CNN. They have a report implying Mueller not only not slowing down, but he is now moving to question Russian oligarchs, as many as 3, to track the money trail. Now let's get right to it with former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, David Priest, a former CIA intelligence officer. He used to give Bob Mueller a morning intelligence briefing, and Jack Quinn, who served as White House counsel to President Clinton and took the position at the time that maybe Bill Clinton should not give testimony. As I just mentioned, Jack, you have a new article acknowledging that history, but saying ultimately it's better when presidents do give testimony, as Clinton did, and Trump should do the same. Why do you say that?
Well, because I litigated this. We went through this with, as you said, President Clinton. And look, at the end of the day, we lost. And I can't imagine any circumstance in which the case law that applied first to President Nixon and then to President Clinton is going to be reversed or for that matter, even qualified. President Trump is going to be required at the end of the day to give testimony to Special Counsel Mueller. I have little doubt, I have no doubt about that. And I think that in the meantime, the efforts on the part of at least some of his lawyers to hide him from the truth or from a day of reckoning only makes him look like he has something to hide. It's impossible, I think, for him to maintain he's got nothing to hide, he's perfectly innocent.
Does that apply? Does that apply to the position you took for Clinton? Were you trying to hide the truth then?
Well, no, we were not trying to hide the truth, but we were trying to make sure.
Is it one of those things where it's different?
To make sure,
Jack, is it one of those things where it's different when you do it?
Yeah, sure, and it's different now. But look, the law is changed. We didn't face a situation in which the law was clear on whether or not President Clinton would be required, for example, to testify in the Paula Jones trial. That happened after my time with President Clinton. He was, in fact, required to testify in a civil suit involving sexual harassment. It's inconceivable that President Clinton could be required to give testimony in a civil suit involving sexual harassment, and yet President Trump would not be required to give testimony in a criminal proceeding where the stakes and the public interest issues are so much greater.
No, you make a fair point.
That's just not going to happen. So I think that.
Let me get Renato in. Jack, let me get Renato in. You make a fair point, and that if you have to do the little thing, the civil case, you probably have to do the big thing. Renato, your view of this?
Absolutely.
Well, first of all, I mean, one way that Trump could get out of testifying is by taking the fifth. So if we're talking about that question, I will tell you, if I represented Donald Trump, I would be telling him to take the fifth. My understanding is that's what Dowd told him to do, and he subsequently quit the team, and I imagine that that's because the president wasn't following his advice. One issue for the Trump camp is Donald Trump doesn't seem to be following sound legal advice, and I think regardless, you can say, well, he has something to hide. Look, he's the subject of a federal criminal investigation. Of course, he's got some very serious concerns, and keeping his mouth shut is probably his best move going forward.
David, you've spent, as we mentioned, time with Mueller. I want to read from these rules because since the Washington Post reported it out, reminded people it's gotten a lot of attention that, of course, Mueller will put this together. Rod will make the call. At the conclusion of the work, Mueller will provide the Attorney General, in this case Rod, with a confidential report. Rod then can determine public release of these reports, whether they're in the public interest, meaning that's up to Rod Rosenstein. Do you think Bob Mueller, based on what you know, will leave that up in the air, or will he create a report, as lawyers can do, in a way that it really puts the heat on Rosenstein to pass it on?
I don't envision it being putting the heat on Rosenstein. I see it doing a meticulous, complete job which allows Rosenstein to do that if he judges that it should be done. And frankly, politically, it'll be hard not to. I can't imagine a scenario in which there's any kind of a report that goes to Rosenstein, and whether the decision is to pursue further measures or not, that there isn't pressure to put that out there. Listen, this investigation has so many different parts that are touching so many different aspects of the campaign and things around it that the public interest and the congressional interest is high enough. They're going to want to know the details in one way or another.
Right. And Jack, on that point, I mean, what David's referring to is that if this is done the right way, there shouldn't be a ton of daylight between Rosenstein and Mueller because they're interested in getting to the facts within the rules, right? On that point, I'm holding the new memo here that came out, you know, this week in the Manafort case, where Paul Manafort's lawyers were arguing, hey, maybe Mueller overstepped his authority. And Mueller was like, yeah, sorry, dude, I have all the authority written in advance from Rod Rosenstein. Jack, as an experienced White House litigator, I wonder, what did you take from that? Does that show that these two are really in lockstep in a way that wasn't previously confirmed with internal DOJ memoranda?
I think everything we've seen about the dealings between Mueller and Rosenstein suggests that they are totally in lockstep. You know, but look, to the greater point, it's absolutely the case that the public interest in seeing this report, whatever it may say, is going to be enormous. We have elections coming up, by the way. In the event that Democrats took one house, you can be sure that there would be processes underway to compel the disclosure of the report to the Hill. But I think that even Rosenstein, he would, I believe, very much want, at a minimum, to transmit the report to the committee chairs and ranking members of the relevant affected committees on the Hill. But one way or the other, I think this report will become public. Again, the issues, this is not Bill Clinton, this is not tawdry sex stories. This is about Russian interference in our electoral process at the very heart of our democracy. That is not going to be kept under wraps, you know, for any period of time. I don't think once it's complete, once the investigation is completed.
And Renato, take a listen to Jim Comey explaining why you don't get into too much detail about witness v. subject v. target.
For you to make a public statement that he was not under investigation would not have been illegal, but you felt it made no sense because it could potentially create a duty to correct if circumstances changed.
Yes, sir. We wrestled with it before my testimony where I confirmed that there was an investigation, and there were two primary concerns. One was it creates a duty to correct, which I've lived before, and you want to be very careful about doing that. And second, it's a slippery slope.
Renato, as you know, there's the way that lawyers and politicians use all those words and you don't know what they're saying, but duty to correct and slippery slope, as I understand it, means you say someone's a subject one day because they are intimately bound up in these alleged crimes. You learn more information, even potentially from their testimony, and the next day they become a target. They're about to be indicted in a normal case. Is that your view of this?
Well, I will tell you, Ari, when you're investigating crime, you don't have like a little chalkboard in your office where you write subject or target, or where an alarm bell goes off. These are judgments you make. Usually you don't even wrestle with those questions unless or until you were asked by their lawyer or there's some reason to come up with that determination. And it's not always a simple, easy question to answer because, for example, determining whether someone is a target means you've decided that you are going to pursue charges against them. That's what it means. And that sort of decision is not something, or you're likely to make that determination, or that you're likely to seek an indictment.
Are you raising the legal prospect that because this particular individual, the President of the United States, has extra reasons that any indictment, potential indictment, is very different, that the bar from subject to target would be even higher in this case? Meaning it's worse that he's a subject in this case?
Well, what I mean is that I guess what I'm trying to say, Ari, is it's something you generally do towards the end of your investigation period.
Yeah.
I think certainly he's going to be very careful about it when you're dealing with a case of this magnitude. But you'd be careful with anyone. I was very careful about saying that somebody was a target of investigation in any case.
Right. That comes at the end of the investigation, and you know, Renato, what comes at the end of the A block. A brief commercial break. Renato Mariotti, David Parise, and Jack Quinn, thanks to each of you for your expertise. I got to tell you why you should stick around. A federal judge rejecting that effort to rein in Mueller. I'm going to explain more on that. Rob Reiner is here with me in studio tonight to talk about his project to investigate Russia. Also, more scandal. Trump's embattled EPA chief confronted on Fox News. We'll show you how it went down. And then later tonight, something I'm very excited about, our Beat Special report. 50 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King, we welcome 3 generations of activists and leaders to talk about this record on civil rights.
I think there's blame on both sides. They are trying to take away our history and our heritage. You're living in poverty. Your schools are no good. You have no jobs. Oh, look at my African-American over here. Look at him.
I'll be joined by Reverend Al Sharpton, leaders from Black Lives Matter, the Little Rock Nine, all in one place for this special conversation. I'm Ari Melber, and you're watching The Beat on MSNBC.
We get the idea. You're looking for your lost dog Spots. Does anybody know him?
No. Wherever he is, we'll find him. We're a pack of alpha dogs. You're Rex.
I'm an indoor dog.
You're King.
Spots. He's nowhere around here.
You're Duke.
Or somebody spoke his language.
You're Boss.
I think the little pilot's got a screw loose.
I'm Chief. Nobody's giving up around here ever. Wow. Isle of Dogs. Rated PG-13.
Discover card. Hey, I'm curious about your Social Security alerts.
Oh, we'll alert you if we find your Social Security number on any one of thousands of risky sites.
So you'll be in the know. Oh, being in the know is very good.
Oh, don't shake.
Sign up online for free. Discover Social Security alerts.
Maria's always on the go, taking over 7,000 steps each day, and she does it in any shoes she wants, with lasting comfort. Only Dr. Scholl's stylish step has insoles that are clinically proven to provide all-day comfort. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
Dad, hi. I had a very minor fender bender tonight in an unreasonably narrow fast food drive-thru lane. But what a powerful life lesson. And don't worry, I have everything handled. I already spoke to our Allstate agent, and I know that we have accident forgiveness, which is so smart on your guys' part. Like the fact that they'll just forgive you.
4 weeks without the car.
Okay, yep, good night.
With accident forgiveness, your rates won't go up just because of an accident. Switching to Allstate is worth it.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve, all day strong.
The wonderful thing about Polident is the fact that it's very, very tough on bacteria, yet it's very gentle on the denture itself.
Polident consists of 4 powerful ingredients that work together to deep clean your denture in hard-to-reach places.
Captivating exteriors. Dynamic lighting. Elevated comfort. Powerfully efficient. And one more thing. The world comes with it. The 2019 Jeep Cherokee.
Hi, Katie Osborne for Endurance. Like you, I love my car. And we're keeping our cars longer than ever, which means you're probably driving with little or even no warranty coverage. And let's be real, your car's gonna break down sooner or later. Plus, if you're driving with an expired warranty, you will have to pay for those repairs. Do you even realize how much repairs cost these days? Look at these prices. There are so many other things I would rather buy than a new transmission, or power steering. Well, to avoid these costs, you need Endurance. What's Endurance? It's an affordable vehicle protection plan that pays for your car repairs, the parts, the labor. It's all included. With Endurance, you will save thousands. Plus, you'll get to choose a mechanic who works on your car. Remember, insurance only protects you in an accident. That's only half the equation. The other half is Endurance, protecting you when your car breaks down. Don't forget, insurance plus endurance equals total protection.
New developments in this growing ethics scandal engulfing the Trump White House. His environmental czar under fire for this sweetheart housing deal from a D.C. lobbyist who won a project from Scott Pruitt's agency. This is the definition of a conflict. Now, news tonight, Trump's telling Scott Pruitt to keep fighting, and he says this is more of a controversy than a controversy.
This is another example, in my view, of folks trying to take, adversaries and those that seek to get us off the agenda of what we're focused upon and create a controversy when none exists.
The problem looks broader than the EPA. Critics note the Trump administration now has 4 separate cabinet secretaries or senior officials facing conflicts or lavish spending critiques. I'm joined now by former Democratic Senator from California, Barbara Boxer, also host of the weekly podcast Fight Back. Thank you for joining me. Why does a story like this, which in some sense can seem petty to people, why does it matter?
This is not a petty story. This is a full-blown scandal. Ari, I lived in that very building, which is prime real estate, steps from the Senate buildings. It costs $5,000 a month if you want to rent the place, and if you have a room reserved for you anytime you want it, you're essentially, living rent-free. I'm sure he had all his clothes there. The whole thing is outrageous, that it would be outrageous even if the person had nothing to do with the business of the day that Scott Pruitt deals with all the time. But this is a lobbyist with a lot of ties to the Energy Department, to the EPA, which I think should be renamed the Environmental Pollution Agency. This isn't just scandalous, it is a scandal. I think you know that I was either the chair or the vice chair of the Ethics Committee in the Senate for many years. If any senator did this, bye-bye, truly.
Wow. Well, and you make the point, given your residential expertise in addition to your other expertise, that this is a very fancy place. So it's basically like if we heard that he was being handed $5,000 in cash every month, to your point about the value, that would really raise eyebrows, and yet they seem to have tried to find a loophole. I want to play for you Fox News, where Ed Henry really pushed Pruitt on another issue about whether he was in the loop about this special deal for some of his aides. Take a look.
Why did you go around the president and the White House and give pay raises to 2 staffers?
I did not. My staff did, and I found out about that yesterday, and I changed it.
So who did it?
It may be there would be some accountability.
A career person or a political person?
I'll have to. I don't know. I don't know.
You don't know. You don't know the agency. You don't know who did it.
I found out about this yesterday, and I corrected the action.
The idea there that he's claiming he just doesn't know what's going on.
Well, first of all, I don't believe it for 2 seconds. Look, you have to realize this is a man who built his career by suing the Environmental Protection Agency when he was Attorney General of Oklahoma. He was picked for this job because Trump has no interest in protecting our air, our water. Ari, we got to get back to the basics here. This man, the first thing he did is to put a pesticide back on the market that has been proven to cause nerve damage in children. I mean, that's the first thing he did. Now he's trying to dirty and filthy up our air by going after California and many other states that want to have not high emission standards, lower emission standards for automobiles to protect our lungs. The highest rate of school absences is due to asthma. So this guy is a danger. He's a danger to the community. He needs to go. He's unethical. I don't understand this Congress. If any of this ever happened, when Obama was president, you would have had,
Be lights
hearings
out.
like they had for Benghazi. Yeah, I mean, it'd be 8-10 hours of hearings. They would haul Obama's EPA person, Gina, before the committee. It's a double standard, and it's scandalous, truly.
Senator Barbara Boxer, thank you as always for your wisdom tonight. I appreciate it. Up ahead, a leading warning on a blue wave coming. Hollywood legend Rob Reiner also here with his new Russia project. Stay with us.
Your heart doesn't only belong to you. So if you have heart failure, ask your doctor about Entresto. It helps keep people alive and out of the hospital. Don't take Entresto if pregnant. It can cause harm or death to an unborn baby. Don't take Entresto with an ACE inhibitor or aliskiren, or if you've had angioedema with an ACE or ARM. The most serious side effects are angioedema, low blood pressure, kidney problems, or high blood potassium. Entresto for heart failure.
Get your groove on with 1-A-Day 50 Plus.
Get ready for the wildlife.
Complete multivitamins with key nutrients that address 6 concerns of aging, including heart health, supported by B vitamins. Your 1-A-Day is showing.
You tell your insurance company they made a mistake. The check they sent isn't enough to replace your totaled new car. The guy says they didn't make the mistake, you made the mistake. I beg your pardon? He says you should have chosen full car replacement. Excuse me? Let me be frank, he says. You picked the wrong insurance plan. No, I picked the wrong insurance company.
With Liberty Mutual new car replacement, we'll replace the full value of your car, plus depreciation. Liberty stands with you. Liberty Mutual Insurance.
Allergies with sinus congestion and pressure? You won't find relief here. Go to the pharmacy counter for powerful Claritin D. While the leading allergy spray relieves 6 symptoms, Claritin D relieves 8, including sinus congestion and pressure. Claritin D relieves more.
I never dreamed that I'd meet somebody like you. No, I don't wanna fall in love with you.
Did you know that every time you use the internet, you put yourself at risk? Not only can your internet service provider see every website you visit, hackers can see your transaction details. Strangers can monitor your children's activity. NordVPN uses military-grade security protocols that protect your information so no one can see what you do online. Protect up to 6 devices for just $4 per month. Don't risk being hacked. Visit nordvpn.com/TV today.
Get $30 off at blueapron.com/cook.
Innovation is an ever-evolving journey. It pushes us beyond the ordinary. The Greenworks Pro 60-volt, 140-mile-per-hour axial blow, sold exclusively at Lowe's and Lowe's.com.
Donald Trump's new claim that he's tougher on Russia than anyone is not true, but it does show him on defense in one of the strangest plots in public life. The story of how Russia interfered in a close American election and joined a public alliance with the beneficiary of that interference, and now, well, this has been providing a cast of characters in an open criminal probe. When you look at Russian interference in American elections, it's clearly a plot worthy of a Hollywood screenplay, as my next guest, Rob Reiner, can certainly attest. He has an impressive record in film and television, including directing the courtroom classic A Few Good Men, where a general takes the law into his own hands. Who can forget when Colonel Jessup tells the court that his existence, while grotesque and incomprehensible to the prosecutor, it saves lives.
Right. Yes. You want me on that wall.
You need me on that wall.
You need me on that wall.
Damn straight.
Yes.
And it kind of speaks to a mentality of being above the law, power above the law, that the plot, I think, ultimately shows you why that's bankrupt. It's a warning that we argue could inform your new work, which is, of course, a work of nonfiction, the Committee to Investigate Russia. Former Pentagon and intelligence chiefs are involved. The idea is to both expose Russian interference and also provide what they call nonpartisan information about this Mueller probe. Rob Reiner, back on the beat. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ari.
Where is this plot headed?
Well, that's the question. That's the big question. And we're not talking about just what happens to Donald Trump. I mean, whatever happens to Donald Trump is going to be determined by Robert Mueller. What we're talking about is trying to get the public to understand the gravity of what has happened. This is not just about meddling in an election. This is about Russia's desire to destroy not only our democracy, but democracies around the world. And they have not only disrupted our elections, but they've invaded our electrical grids, water supplies, atomic energy plants, and they're poised to do a lot more damage than we can possibly imagine. And the only way that we are going to protect ourselves and save our democracy is if we have a leader in the White House who's willing to acknowledge all this and do what's necessary to get the right kind of safeguards and the right protocols to push back.
I don't want to overdo our Hollywood plot format, but I will.
Okay.
I will, because that's what I do.
Okay.
Okay? In overdoing it, let me say that when you watch a movie and you know who you're rooting for and against, a lot of the information you take in through that prism, and it's clarifying, right?
Right.
In your work now and trying to do this, and you are a master storyteller, how problematic is it that for a large part of the country, the truth about what Vladimir Putin is doing is politically uncomfortable because of their support for Donald Trump?
Well, it's incredibly difficult. I mean, normally, under any normal circumstances, every single administration puts out propaganda. That's always the case, whether it's to promote a war that we shouldn't be getting into, like Iraq or Vietnam, or just to sell a policy, to sell the wonderfulness of a new policy. But when you have an administration that is backed up by essentially state-run television, with Fox, with now Sinclair, InfoWars, it is incredibly difficult to push the truth out. You are really fighting an uphill battle.
Out of the polarization prism. You mentioned
very hard.
You mentioned the Iraq War. You actually have a movie coming out about the journalism in that sphere. Right. Let's look at this.
Okay.
We don't write for people who send other people's kids to war. We write for people whose kids get sent to war. So when the government says something, you only have one question to ask. Is it true?
That's really the ultimate question. That is what the fourth estate is supposed to do. It is supposed to try to get to the truth, hold the administration accountable, and it is getting more and more difficult. Not only are our mainstream media, mainstream media, what is mainstream media anymore? When you talk about Fox or Sinclair, that's mainstream media too. So what is the truth, and how do you get to the truth when you're fighting not only propaganda and tweets from a president who says fake news, but also these alternative universes that we all are wrestling with?
What is the truth? We started with A Few Good Men. We ended with Socrates. What is truth and beauty? We'll come back for your seminar anytime. I hope you'll join us again, Rob Reiner, and we'll check out the new film. Coming up next, there is another Democrat winning in a state that Donald Trump took. A leading Republican is saying, watch out for this blue wave. I'm going to break that down. And later, on the 50th anniversary of Dr. King's assassination, our special discussion with 3 generations of civil rights leaders.
We're finally back out in our yard, but so are they.
The triple threat of dandelions, lurking crabgrass, and wheat-thin grass. Introducing the all-new Scott's Turf Builder Triple Action. This single-step breakthrough changes everything. It kills weeds, prevents crabgrass for up to 4 months, and feeds so grass can thrive, all guaranteed. Only from Scott's.
Our backyard is back.
This is a Scott's yard.
I've been making blades here at Gillette for 20 years. I'll bet I'm the first blade maker you've ever met. There's a lot of innovation that goes into making our thinnest, longest-lasting blades on the market. Precision machinery and high-quality materials from around the world. Nobody else even comes close. It's about delivering a more comfortable shave every time. Invented in Boston, made and sold around the world. Now starting at $7.99. Gillette, the best a man can get.
my constipation, my doctor recommended I switch to Miralax. Stimulant laxatives make your body go by forcefully stimulating the nerves in your colon. Miralax is different. It works with the water in your body to hydrate and soften, unblocking your system naturally. Miralax.
This is something that I'm really passionate about. I really want to help. I was on my way out of this life. There are patients out there that don't have a lot of time. Finally, it was like the sun rose again, and I was going to start fighting back now. When those patients come to me and say, "You saved my life," my life was saved by a 2-week-old targeted therapy drug. That's what really drives me to save lives.
Get hardwood flooring styles for every room at Lumber Liquidators. This week get 27% off Brazilian pecan and more. Pre-finished hardwood from $189. Waterproof floors are on sale. Get more from 59 cents plus special financing. Hurry, get to Lumber Liquidators today.
Let's get started. Show of hands. Who wants customizable options chains? Ones that make it fast and easy to analyze and take action. How about some of the lowest options fees? Are you raising your hand? Good. And it's time for Power E-Trade, the platform price and service that gives you the edge you need. All right, one quick game of rock, paper, scissors. 1, 2, 3, go. E-Trade, the original place to invest online.
If you have moderate to severe plaque psoriasis or psoriatic arthritis, little things can be a big deal. That's why there's Otezla. Otezla is not an injection or a cream. It's a pill that treats differently. For psoriasis, 75% clearer skin is achievable with reduced redness, thickness, and scaliness of plaques. And for psoriatic arthritis, Otezla is proven to reduce joint swelling, tenderness, and pain. And the Otezla prescribing information has no requirement for routine lab monitoring. Don't use if you're allergic to Otezla. Otezla may cause severe diarrhea, nausea, or vomiting. Tell your doctor if these occur. Otezla is associated with an increased risk of depression. Tell your doctor if you have a history of depression or suicidal thoughts or if these feelings develop. Some people taking Otezla reported weight loss. Your doctor should monitor your weight and may stop treatment. Other side effects include upper respiratory tract infection and headache. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you're pregnant or planning to be. Otezla, show more of you.
He's playing with us.
No. He's trying to tell us something.
Let's see what forensics thinks.
Sorry I'm late. What'd I miss?
Want to get away? Now you can with Southwest fares as low as $49 one way. Yes to low fares with nothing to hide. That's transparency.
As the old saying goes, watch out now. A prominent Republican warning his own party about what could be a blue wave. Democrats last took control of the House in 2006 and held it for 4 years, but haven't gotten it back since. New political signs that change is coming. Since Donald Trump was elected, Democrats have gained on average 14 points in their 2016 presidential margins against Republicans in these special elections we've been tracking. Some of the wins have made headlines because they occurred in those red states like Alabama or Pennsylvania, which was, of course, red for Trump. Then turned to Wisconsin, a Democrat winning by nearly 12 points. That is a 13-point swing from the statewide victory for Trump.
Tonight we proved that when the people rise up and stand together, we can beat the special interests. We beat the NRA.
That was a victory speech last night, and it comes as Wisconsin's Republican governor, who fought to try to prevent some of these elections, now warning of a, quote, blue wave, hashtag blue wave in Wisconsin. Republicans clearly concerned. Now, up next, something very special we've been working on here for a long time on The Beat. Donald Trump's agenda and issues of race 50 years after the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. We've brought together 3 generations of civil rights leaders and activists, from a member of the Little Rock Nine to the Reverend Al Sharpton to the founder of Black Lives Matter. All of this about how they're confronting a president who's been talking about good people on both sides. Our special when we're back in 90 seconds.
What's happening inside average underwear? What's happening inside Duluth bullpen underwear? Duluth Trading bullpen underwear with Stay Put pouch. Keep your boys where they belong. Only at Duluth stores and DuluthTrading.com.
Patrick woke up with back pain, but he has work to do, so he took a leave. If he'd taken Tylenol, he'd be stopping for more pills right now. Only Aleve has the strength to stop tough pain for up to 12 hours with just one pill. Aleve, all day strong.
As a control enthusiast, I'm all business when I travel. Even when I travel for leisure. So I go national, where I can choose any available upgrade in the aisle without starting any conversations or paying any upcharges. What can I say? Control suits me. Go national. Go like a pro.
Nick was born to move. 3 toddlers won't stop him, and neither will lower back pain. Because at a Dr. Scholl's kiosk, he got a recommendation for a custom-fit orthotic to relieve his foot, knee, or lower back pain from being on his feet. Dr. Scholl's, born to move.
Tonight is special on the beat, civil rights in the Trump era. This week marks 50 years since the assassination of Dr. Martin Luther King. He was shot and killed on a hotel balcony in Memphis on April 4th, 1968. It was one day after a speech to striking sanitation workers in Memphis, where he advocated better working conditions. King also spoke about the obstacles ahead and the battles left to fight.
I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Now, 50 years later, we gathered 3 generations of civil rights leaders at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem to ask about that road to the promised land. Welcome. I'm here at the Schomburg Center for Research in Black Culture in Harlem, marking the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Martin Luther King. And tonight we're asking an important question. How are Black Americans advocating civil rights under a president who's defended white supremacy? I'm joined tonight by a very special panel, Dr. Melba Beals, who at the age of 15 stared down threats and hatred to help integrate Little Rock Central High School. My colleague, Reverend Al Sharpton, who headed up Dr. King's Operation Breadbasket right here in New York at the age of 13. Mark Morial, a longtime civil rights leader and former mayor of New Orleans. He now heads the National Urban League. Patrice Cullors, co-founder of Black Lives Matter, which he started in 2013 after the acquittal of George Zimmerman and the shooting death of Trayvon Martin. DeRay McKesson, an organizer who's led protests in Ferguson and Baltimore and ran for mayor there, and Beverly Bond of Black Girls Rock. Thank you to all of you. Rev Sharpton, I begin with that question. Advocating civil rights under Donald Trump.
You know, the irony to me is 50 years ago, I was 13 when Dr. King was killed, and everybody was fighting each other. You know, we were too mainstream, somebody was too revolutionary, and the result was the November Dr. King was killed, Richard Nixon was elected. The danger is that we can't let Trump play us off against each other.
You're nodding.
The lessons from that time, I think, are so pertinent to this moment right now. We are in a moment where there's Black Lives Matter, there's the Women's March, there's Me Too, there's Time's Up. There's all these movements in which we are trying to grapple with a president who's denounced so many of us. And I think now is the time where we actually have to join together. There's so much at stake. And so I think that's a profound lesson to learn from Dr. King.
The world we're fighting for is the same, but we often differ about how we can get there. And then we want to sit at the table and say, like, how do we get there? Like, what does that actually look like? And I'm hopeful about that.
We don't just have a president that supports these very racist ideas. He's unearthed something about our community, about our America, that we kind of let go. We've kind of acted as if it wasn't still here.
Do you think Donald Trump's election exposed a hate that people wanted to believe was not as prevalent as it is?
Absolutely. It absolutely exposed a hate.
Dr. Beals, what did you just say?
We let the dogs out. We did. Because I blame even those leaders and fighters who are my age for not realizing that although we got fairly comfortable with our Jimmy Choos, we did not understand that desegregation is not integration. I want you to see me as equal. And so if you don't get that going on, you have nothing.
Did you say Jimmy Choos?
I did. I said we got comfy, wumpy, woo.
So when you talk about comfort, are you directing that at both white and black Americans?
I'm directing it at everybody, because we're not really talking about civil rights anymore. We're talking about human rights. Trump is a great gift to us all, because he woke us up.
You use the word gift. I want to go around and take one word for what Trump has done to the civil rights movement.
He's been an ignition.
Ignition, Reverend?
Backlash.
Decimation.
Nightmare.
Beverly, Donald Trump in a word.
Agitator.
I want to play Donald Trump's approach to racial strife, which we have had since the founding of this nation, but this was his approach in his first year.
I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either.
That was a response to white supremacist violence. Now I want to play another president who also had a questionable racial record, but how he responded in a moment of a national test after violence in Selma.
There is no Negro problem. There is only an American problem. It's all of us who must overcome the crippling legacy of bigotry and injustice. And we shall overcome.
Johnson, King, Whitney Young, the 1960s bore a great movement and great progress. Then there was Nixon and Wallace. Don't forget, 1968 was Nixon and Wallace. Between them, they got 55% of the vote. And they engineered a backlash to the movement. We have to learn that progress will beget a backlash.
We saw that white evangelicals actually support him in historically high numbers, almost 80%, which is sort of wild. And I worry about the way that he is sort of offering language that suggests that these are equally legitimate, right? That the belief in justice and freedom is the same, has the same legitimacy as the belief that, like, a set of people shouldn't even exist.
Did we think we were going to have 8 years of black president and there wasn't going to be a backlash? They're trying to pick off and do what Nixon and them did. They will call her a terrorist. They will call him a radical and sue him. And we don't say anything. When Muhammad Ali stood up and said, I'm a Muslim, I don't believe in Christianity, but I'm not going to fight the war, Dr. King went and stood with Ali. And we must have the moral courage to say, we may have different tactics, we may have different ways. She may call me OG, but she's not a terrorist. So he's not an extremist. That's where we got to go, because he wants to pick us all off.
So the Rev's talking about your work.
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter came partly out of other things not working enough. Eric Holder has spoken about it, as you know. Here was he in 2009, but I wonder if it looks more prescient today.
Though this nation has proudly thought of itself as a ethnic melting pot, in things racial, we have always been, and we, I believe, continue to be, in too many ways, essentially a nation of cowards. Average Americans simply do not talk enough with each other about things racial.
I'm just having a moment, because I'm like, this was our country at one point.
That was the Attorney
General. Many of us weren't asleep. We spent the last 5 years under a Barack Obama presidency, under Eric Holder as the Attorney General, fighting in the streets, protesting, trying to stop the state-sanctioned murders of black people. And now we can't even get that on mainstream media.
It was, of course, a famous civil rights song about the revolution not being televised was a critique.
You know that song.
I know a few songs, but the Gil Scott-Heron critique was of a corporate media that would never show black activism, no matter how large the march was.
Or show it only in a negative light.
Or show it very negatively as violence, not as protest. And I want to take that point and go fit in a break before our final discussion about what the areas of agreement and collaboration and constructive disagreement are here with 3 generations in this room when we come back.
Feel the clarity of non-drowsy Claritin and relief from symptoms caused by over 200 allergens, like those from Buddy. Because stuffed animals are clearly no substitute for real ones. Feel the clarity and live Claritin Clear.
What does it take to make digital transformation actually happen? It takes Dell Technologies, a family of 7 technology leaders working behind the scenes to make the impossible reality. We're helping to give cars the power to read your mind from anywhere. And we're helping up to 40% of the nation's donated blood supply to be redirected to the people that need it most. Magic can't make digital transformation happen, but we can.
You might take something for your heart or joints, but do you take something for your brain? With an ingredient originally found in jellyfish, Prevagen is the #1 selling brain health supplement in drugstores nationwide. Prevagen, the name to remember.
This is a story about mail and packages. And it's also a story about people. People who rely on us every day to deliver their dreams. They're handing us more than mail. They're handing us their business. And while we make more e-commerce deliveries to homes than anyone else in the country, we never forget that your business is our business. The United States Postal Service. Priority, you.
There are so many choices for identity thieves on the dark web, but you can protect yourself with Experian. Get a completely free dark web scan to see if your identity has already been compromised. Go to Experian.com/free.
Ways to lose stubborn belly fat. The Northern Percussion Massage. Not cool. Freezing away fat cells with Cool Sculpting, now that's cool. Cool Sculpting safely freezes and removes fat cells with little or no downtime and no surgery. Results and patient experience may vary. Some rare side effects include temporary numbness, discomfort, and swelling. Ask your doctor if Cool Sculpting is right for you and visit CoolSculpting.com today for your chance to win a free treatment.
Feel the clarity of non-drowsy Claritin 24-hour relief when allergies occur. Day after day after day. Because life should have more wishes and less worries. Feel the clarity and live Claritin Clear.
Privacy in the digital age.
Privacy to us is a human right.
Facebook under fire.
If you were Mark Zuckerberg, what would you do right now?
I wouldn't be in this situation.
Okay.
Apple CEO Tim Cook lets loose in the interview everyone's talking about. A special town hall hosted by Chris Hayes and Kara Swisher. Revolution, Apple changing the world. Friday at 8 on MSNBC. Revolution is sponsored by Allstate. Are you in good hands?
This one I really like.
This one's just okay.
Ugh, I wouldn't even cook with that one.
Now you know wine tastes great before you open it. The Tasting Room, America's #1 personalized wine club. Every bottle is selected for you based on your personal wine profile. Only 1 in 50 wines makes it through our rigorous selection process, and every bottle is backed by a total satisfaction guarantee. The Huffington Post calls Tasting Room the first wine club to get it right. Enjoy amazing wines at incredible prices, selected just for you, delivered right to your door. Get started at tastingroom.com and receive our exclusive tasting kit of world-class wines. A $40 value, now just $6.95. Then taste and rate each wine and build your personal profile. It's a no-brainer. Great wine without the guesswork. Backed by our total satisfaction guarantee. Go to tastingroom.com, enter promo code RED1, and get your exclusive tasting kit. A $40 value for just $6.95. Tastingroom.com, enter promo code RED1. Tasting Room. Taste, rate, enjoy.
We're back with our Beat Special, Civil Rights in the Trump Era, 50 years after the assassination of Martin Luther King. These civil rights leaders were just speaking about organizing in the Trump era, a time where the president has been a unifying force for many activists. Our next question cuts to what can be a deeper challenge. How do the Black Lives Matter movement and other young activists today address potential differences with these legacy civil rights leaders? And welcome back to our discussion marking the 50th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination, gathering civil rights leaders from literally 3 generations. And our final topic is the most difficult, but I hope and I think we come to it constructively. There are disagreements in this community. DeRay, did you get involved in part because you felt other things weren't working?
Well, I definitely grew up in a world where, like, those people marched and, like, they fought for it and we wouldn't have to do that same thing, right? Like, that was sort of the narrative that I had gotten. And I'll never forget the first time I was tear gassed and I was like, I just didn't think that this would be something I would have to do, right? That there seems like something didn't work out in a way that it was supposed to. I don't know if the disagreements are like they were 3 years ago. I think that there were a generation of people who wanted to be our parents more than they wanted to be our peers in this work. And I think that has changed. I think that people are more willing to sit at the table and
Isn't Rev old enough to be your parent?
But I think that we can sit at the table and, like, disagree about ideas or agree about ideas in a way that isn't paternalistic and that isn't like, because you did it longer that you have all the answers. And I think that we've actually come along.
No, but let me respond to that, though, and then Mark's. See, I think it's a maturing thing. Let's not act like they didn't have these same disagreements in the 60s. Mm-hmm. And we had to expand. One of the things I had to struggle with the people older than me, John Lewis, Jesse generation, what I worked under, is that we had to embrace LGBTQ, women. Women couldn't speak at the March on Washington. Right. When I came out for same-sex marriage, I had preachers tell me I can't preach at their church anymore. So I think that all of this, we had to deal with these contradictions, and we are dealing with them.
Yeah, forever. In Little Rock, for example, we were at a place where we were totally being let go of. We had no friends. People were very angry at us because all of the African-American schools went dead that year that we were out of school. Not only that, the more we went to Central High School, the more they lost their jobs. They lost their holiday contributions. And some people just said, you're too uppity. Things were getting better, you ought to take them like they are.
I think that it's important to remember we were young activists. We were there. Right, many of us started when we were teenagers, as young adults. What I saw when Black Lives Matter sort of emerged was, I said, good. Young people are organizing themselves and collectively voicing concerns.
But I have to push, there is more than that. There are leaders in civil rights and black leaders who said Black Lives Matter was not well thought out. Eric Holder has said it should have had a different name, as you know.
Yeah, and a different, I think there was, I agree with DeRay in this, and that 3 years ago we were in a different place in how we related to each other. There was a lot of disagreements. There was a lot of, I think people were like, oh, are we gonna last? Are we gonna just be like Occupy? Where is our policies? What do, Black Lives Matter is just a protest movement. And I think in some ways we asserted our leadership and said, we're staying here, we're not going anywhere.
And I think that when you start your activism comes from a place of passion. It comes from a place of, I want to do something to make change. So you don't have policy, you don't necessarily even have structure, you just want to make change.
Mayor Morial, what about when some of today's activists say they're a leaderless movement and they don't need an organization or a brick building? Indeed, they say that might make it worse. What do you say to that?
Well, I say that over time, movements many times turn into institutions. I lead an organization that's 108 years old. It didn't start as an institution. It started as a movement.
We're in this moment where we actually need strong black institutions to fight what is white supremacy, what is the rise of white nationalism. And I think it's important, but we're always going to see movements then, emerge, and sometimes in response to the institution.
There is a lot of work out here to be done.
But I think it's important you understand that they have a lot of elders with Black Lives Matter.
Yes.
We have young people in National Action Network.
And National Urban League.
And in National Urban League. My youth read Patrice Cullors' books more than they listen to my sermons. They listen to him on live stream more than they watch my television show. So it's not a monolith. And I think that we've grown and had to adjust. Don't forget, we're only the second generation that didn't have to adjust to the fact that most of our leaders, Malcolm, Martin, got killed before they were 40. Right. We just learned that our leaders could get old. Right. So we're trying to adjust to that.
You don't have to be in an organization to make an impact, right? One of the most beautiful things about what happened in the street in Ferguson is that, like, people just came outside, right? And made a commitment that they were going to stay outside today and stay outside the next day. And, like, we would have loved, you couldn't have told us NAACP wasn't coming to, like, save us and help fix it all. Like, that didn't happen. And no knock on them, but, like, what you saw was people just, like, make a way out of no way in that moment, and that was really beautiful.
Keep in mind, though, in Ferguson, let's talk about Ferguson just for a minute. There are roles that people play.
Yeah, I'm just
And
saying it's
there's a
not
role-
for not that, like,
Yeah.
people in the street for 400 days without like one leader, without a central organizing. Like, that is a beautiful thing. And like, you think about Baltimore, the same thing, where like people came out and sort of made it, right?
So let me add another layer. What happens when the issue itself requires a different or more militant approach? Tell me if I'm getting it wrong. You said this is less about filing a really smart NAACP brief and more about putting pressure on who makes those decisions.
That's absolutely right. And I think this is the conversation around all the approaches are necessary in this moment. But I do think the place where organization matters is the long-term building in a community and sustaining that movement inside the community.
But I think, Ari, also, and I agree with Patrice, is that don't romanticize the 50s and the 60s. The NAACP and the legal strategy didn't always get along with Dr. King and the mobile. I mean, this is not new. You had the Freedom Riders of that time who were the young people like them. Dr. King never rode a bus and was a Freedom Rider. So don't act like all of everybody was together. There were battles back then, like there were.
Dr. Beale, you're laughing.
Well, because we all need everything, people. What's this about? I mean, you're going to need all of what we have. And the way things are going now, people, we need everything you got in the house. I mean, going to Central High School was in itself a violent and active move on our part. We went where they didn't want us, when they didn't want us. And so there are different kinds of action that one must take. And we have to be prepared to take it all. And yet, once having done that, I now wish there had been some group that had come in and said, okay, now you've taken that first step. Let us build a situation in which we have these people work together and learn the philosophical and the spiritual bent of being together.
Before we go, I want to ask everyone, in a word or a sentence, how are you remembering Dr. King, and how should people apply his legacy today?
Role model, having the moral courage to stand up even when it's unpopular for what is right.
The greatest American of the 20th century. And we should remember his last fight for economic rights and his fight through the Poor People's Campaign to bring black people, white people, and Latinos together.
Before anything else, a man of God and a man who backed education to the hilt. Get prepared. Don't go out there thinking you deserve anything for nothing.
His humanitarianism, his courage, he was a hero.
Focus on systems and structures, and we know because people built this, people can build something else.
He was a community organizer through and through, and he showed up at the local level. Even though he received national attention, he was there for the people on the ground every single day.
All I will add is that the first step to change is usually listening, and it has been a real honor to listen to each of you share your work and experiences today for our special. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to express our thanks to the Schomburg Center in Harlem for hosting that special discussion, as well as thanks to Metropolitan Interactive for their technical work on the special. That is our show. I'll see you back here live 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Hardball with Chris Matthews starts now.
Mueller time. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews back in Washington. New information delivered by the special counsel to the president's legal team is fueling intense speculation now about Donald Trump's legal exposure in the Russian probe. According to a report late last night in the Washington Post, special counsel Robert Mueller informed President Trump's attorneys last month that he is continuing to investigate the president, but does not consider him a criminal target at this point. Instead, Mueller described Trump as a subject of his investigation. As legal experts say, there can be a fine line, however, between a subject and a target of an investigation. While a target is at immediate risk of being indicted, a subject is someone whose conduct is clearly under investigation. So saying Trump is not a target makes sense for two potential reasons. One, Robert Mueller isn't ready to indict him. Or two, Mueller doesn't believe he can indict a president while in office. It does not say he's not investigating Trump, either for purposes of triggering or supporting an impeachment, or for indicting him as a criminal. Well, this development contradicts the president's claim in January that he's not under investigation.
There's been no collusion. There's been no crime. And in theory, everybody tells me I'm not under investigation. Maybe Hillary is, I don't know, but I'm not.
Well, the news that the president's not a target of the probe comes amid the ongoing negotiations to get the president to testify before Mueller's prosecutors. And it sparked a new debate inside Trump's inner circle. According to the Washington Post, the president and some of his allies seized on the special counsel's words as an assurance that Trump's risk of criminal jeopardy is low. Other advisors, however, noted that subjects of investigations can easily become indicted targets and expressed concern the special prosecutor was baiting Trump into an interview that could put the president in legal peril. As Republican Congressman Trey Gowdy warned this morning, this news should not come as a relief to the president.
So if you were his attorney, you would not say, you wouldn't have a sigh of relief.
Heavens no. I will have a sigh of relief when the investigation is over, and even then, maybe not.
Well, I'm joined right now by Ken Delaney, an investigative reporter for NBC News. Robert Costa, co-author of that story in the Washington Post we just reported, and is an MSNBC political analyst. And Mika Ouyang is vice president of the National Security Program at Third Way. And Joyce Vance is a former U.S. attorney and MSNBC contributor. Let's start with the subjective view of Trump. What's he think? What's Trump think, Robert?
His whole camp's divided. The president wants to do the interview. He's telling his lawyers, he's telling White House officials he wants to sit down because he thinks it'll quicken the whole process. But a lot of people around the president are saying, do not sit down with the special counsel.
Could this be a fly trap? This whole thing by
based on reporting, Mueller's trying to get the president to sit down. That's why he had the
Okay, you're not a target. Come see me.
Exactly.
It would be unethical, though, for them to lie about that, for federal prosecutors to say. They have an obligation to tell the truth.
Well, if they're ready, if they're immediately ready to indict, yeah, but they're not. Nobody claims that yet, do they?
No, and in fact, they don't have to tell them exactly what they have. But if he was a target, they'd have to tell him that.
And they got a lot of open questions. We've reported that the Mueller team wants to find out the president's intent on key decisions he made while president, such as firing James Comey.
Mika, you're here. I'm sorry. I want all the opinions here about the first question, which I raised initially. What's the president's mindset now that he's told he's not a target? Does that mean he's frisky now? He's ready to go before the prosecutor and enjoy himself?
I don't know that he's ready to do that, but it does calm him down. He's very clearly someone, when he feels like he's a target or the investigation's getting closer to him, he gets antsy about wanting to end this investigation and fire Mueller. And he's someone who clings to any shred.
For a cracked windshield. That's why we show you exactly when we'll be there, saving you time so you can keep saving the world.
They share one planter, and last season it was a flowering disaster. This year, they're not messing around. Miracle Grow guarantees results with rich potting mix that uses ingredients fresh from the forest and plant food that adds vital nutrition, so you'll have 3 times the blooms. They bask in their success. Miracle Grow, 3 times the beauty, 1 powerful guarantee.
I was right out of college and I was starting job interviews, and I already noticed that my teeth were starting to shift. When I heard of Smile Direct, I was so excited.
Let Smile Direct Club give you a smile you'll love for 60% less than braces by sending invisible aligners direct to you. Plus, we straighten most smiles in an average of 6 months.
So convenient. You don't have to go to an orthodontist every month.